Guys, welcome back to this channel. Today I'm doing a Peacemaker episodes ranked. I was debating whether even to do this video because, I can clearly pick out which ones are, my least favorite episodes of the show, and I know which ones are my favorite episodes of the show, but I cannot figure out between my numbers 6, 5, and 4 which one they would be in, so I eventually figured it out. But not much to say, but I think we can just get right into it. Go check out my Peacemaker review and other videos that I've done recently too. And not much to say, but let's get into this video. Starting things off at last place, I'm going to give it to episode 2, Best Friends for Never. Here's my thing with this one. I think the first half of this one, with Peacemaker jumping and the little building action sequence, with that whole thing is a lot of fun. I love that little sequence. And then the second half, where you have him and Vigilante just doing their thing, it's cool, it's fun and all, but it's just not as good as other things. I will say, even though it's in last place, it's still a good episode. I still really enjoyed it, and I think I preferred this one in first watch quite a bit than compared to second watch. And I loved the little bits with Vigilante and Peacemaker. It's a lot of fun. But this episode, there's not much that really happens overall. I mean, at the end, you do have Peacemaker's dad getting arrested, and right off the bat from episode 1, you realize that Peacemaker's dad is a terrible person. So I guess that's satisfying enough. I guess it's not really satisfying, but yeah, whatever. This episode, it's still good, but I think it is probably my least favorite. Coming in at number 7 is going to be episode 1, A Whole New World. I think I enjoyed this one just slightly more than episode 2, mostly because you got, I think, some funny little scenes with the eagle hugging Peacemaker. And I think overall this is a bit more of an eventful episode than episode 2, and there's some really funny bits, like the part with the janitor at the beginning of the episode. Other parts, where he is finally confronted by the task force, or not Task Force X, that's the Suicide Squad. And overall, I had a lot of fun with this episode. The end of it's pretty good. It's just not as good as some of the other ones. I think a lot of the other episodes have improved. The team dynamics are not here yet. Neither is Vigilante. Neither are a lot of things in this episode, but I do think there's some funny scenes, with Peacemaker and his dad, and the whole thing with Bloodsport. I thought that was a pretty funny scene. And overall, there's some great scenes in this episode, but the overall episode, it's just okay, I guess. But I do quite like it. I still think, even though it's in second last place, it's still a pretty good episode. Coming in at number 6, as I said, 6, 5, and 4 are literally tied. But I'm going to give it to episode 6, Murn After Reading. Overall, I still actually quite enjoy this one. I don't know why I don't enjoy this one as much. So I think the beginning of it, where you learn that a couple people knew that Murn was a butterfly, and then you have Adebayo figure out that, and then she figured out episode 5, and that plays out pretty interestingly. And then the end, you have the little massacre, and then the diary being read to the press. And then there's some other fun sequences like Peacemaker escaping, but I feel like that sequence goes on for a little bit too long. And overall, other than that, it's still a fun episode, but I just don't think it's as good as a lot of the other ones. Granted, I still really enjoyed it. I still think this is a great episode. It's just not as good as all the other ones. Coming in number 5 is going to be episode 4, The Cho Less Traveled. This is definitely the hardest one to place on this list because there are some fantastic moments. You get the dynamic between Vigilante and Peacemaker, and I think that's just really funny. I love it. One of my favorite parts of the show. But then I think as you move on, as the episode goes on, it gets very just uneventful because this stuff happens, Vigilante going to prison for 5 minutes of screen time. That plays out very oddly, if I'm going to be honest. And then this episode plays out kind of weirdly, but still really fun. You see a lot of stuff with Peacemaker, but it feels like Vigilante's the main character of this episode, not Peacemaker. But overall, I still really enjoy this one. As I said, it's a great episode. There's a lot of fun little sequences. I think the ending, revealing that Murn is a butterfly, raises a lot of questions because why is Murn exactly helping them? Is he trying to lure them into a trap? What's going on? And then the way it pays off in episode 5 and 6 is great. So I really do enjoy this one. I think it's a bit more eventful than episode 4 or episode 6. But the problem is the middle part of the episode with the whole prison thing. It's just okay. It's fine. And number 4 is going to be episode 3, Better Goth Dead. I do quite enjoy this one. You have that big action sequence at Goth's house. And overall, I think this is sort of a turning point for the Peacemaker character because he won't kill children, even though there's this line in the Suicide Squad. And it kind of is just like a turning point for this character. I think it's really interesting. That was my favorite part of this episode. Vigilante's a lot of fun. That little torture scene was really fun. I thought he was just fine in the second episode, but I really enjoy him much more in this episode. And then you have the team going on their first real mission together, and then it's a pretty fun one. And overall, I do quite enjoy this episode. I don't really have any huge problems with it, if I'm going to be honest. Except that, like, it just takes place at one big action sequence throughout pretty much the entire episode. But this is where you start to learn what the butterflies actually are. And overall, I find this episode to be quite a bit of fun. So, there you go. Coming in at number 3 is going to be episode 5, Monkey Dory. This is really the episode that made me start to fall in love with the show. I absolutely love this one. You have a great action sequence at this factory where they're killing all the butterflies. And this is probably like the big turning point of the show, episode 5 and 6. Episode 5 especially because you have character moments like Adebayo planting the diary in Peacemaker's trailer, which is something she should not have done because their friendship was going quite nicely until then. And then overall, I really enjoyed that action sequence at the factory. The episode opens pretty on a little bit of a somber note, a bit of an odd note because I don't know how did episode 4 end? Oh, right, with Peacemaker at least. And then there's some really funny sequences, like where he's listing off all the names from just random people, I think. And then the way it continues in the post-credit scene. This is my favorite of the Peacemaker post-credit scenes. And overall, I enjoyed all of that. I thought all of that was just fantastic. And overall, yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I don't really have any huge problems with this one. Because, like, it has a perfect structure, like a perfect first act, second act, third act, or not really third act, but like a great 3-part structure to it. And I think this is where you see the team start to really form, and this is where the show really got going, and I think it's kicked off the great second half of the show. My runner-up is episode 8, It's a Cow or Never. My only problem with this one, I just didn't like the way they killed the cow. Like, you had just the active human torpedo thing. It was still kind of funny, but, like, it wasn't the most satisfying way to kill the cow. It's like, really? But on both watches, second watch, this bothered me even more. Other than that, and like the whole politics thing, I think this episode was just fantastic. I thought this is a perfect conclusion to the show. Had all the action you wanted, with all the character moments, character dynamics, whether it's in funny moments with the dye-beard thing. I thought that was pretty funny and pretty interesting. And then overall, carrying off from episode 7 with Peacemaker killing his dad, I think it led off from that really nicely. And overall, it ended the show on a great note. And that ending sequence is pretty great. And this got me pumped for season 2. The action is just great. I don't have any problems with it. It reminds me of all the great action that was in the Suicide Squad. But I have 2 problems other than those couple scenes. First one is that it's kind of easy to see that the Peacemaker team is obviously just going to win this. And you know that season 2 is going to be coming, so it's just kind of uneventful. It doesn't matter. That's just a very minor nitpick. But other than that, I really enjoyed this episode. Seeing them kill all these butterflies was great. And I think it has some very funny moments, like with Vigilante. And overall, pretty satisfying conclusion to into the season. And the best part was the Justice League showing up. The interesting thing is that they didn't show Superman and Wonder Woman's face. They only showed Aquaman and Flash, the interesting thing is that those are the 2 characters getting movies later this year. Whether it's Aquaman 2 or The Flash coming out like in October or something. And overall, speaking of, I'm pumped for the Batman. I already got my tickets. So, I'm seeing that I think I'm seeing that literally a week from now. Yeah, not much to say, but overall, this is a great episode. But coming in number 1 is the penultimate episode, episode 7, Stop Dragging My Heart Around. I think that's what it's called. I don't know. This episode is just great. It has probably some of my favorite moments, whether it's the action sequence with the dragons, or the white dragons, whatever you want to call them, or whether it's like some of the stuff with Adebayo and Myrn and Hardcore. And whether it's all of that put together makes this probably the best episode of the show. Episode 8 would have been number 1 if the way they killed off the cow was a bit more satisfying. That just didn't quite work. But this episode worked perfectly. The end, and I love the ending where Eagly finally gave Peacemaker a hug with someone actually watching, and he actually took a picture. I thought that was a really funny scene. And overall, all of the elements combined makes this a pretty great episode for the most part. I don't really have any problems with this one. Episode 8 I had a couple nitpicks with. This one, no problems whatsoever, and it comes in at number 1. You can find a way to share your ranking in the if you can find a way to share your ranking of all the episodes in the comments below. Did you like the show? Did you not? I guarantee, hope you did, but you never know. So, not much to say. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Adios.